When the nurse called to report that Lily had arrived without her medication twice in 1 week, David nearly lost it. He confronted Marissa, demanding answers. She twisted it, of course. The nurse exaggerates. Kids forget things. Stop blaming me. David wanted to believe her. I could see it in his eyes, the tug of war between doubt and hope. He clung to the illusion that maybe Marissa was just careless, not cruel. But Lily's whispered words kept replaying in my head. She says I'm not special. That wasn't carelessness. That was deliberate. The pressure built until I felt like I was living in a constant state of alarm. Every time my phone buzzed, I feared it would be bad news. Lily collapsed, Lily rushed to the ER, Lily gone. And Marissa seemed to sense my growing involvement. She started icing me out. If I dropped by, she'd answer the door half shut, claiming Lily was busy. If I texted to check in, she'd reply hours later with curt one-word answers. Worst of all, she started telling Lily that I was exaggerating her condition, that I liked to make her feel weak. The manipulation cut deep. I saw the confusion in Lily's eyes when she asked me, "Am I really weak?" "No," I said firmly, gripping her small hand. "You're the bravest person I know." But the damage was done. Marissa was turning her isolation into a we*P*N, making Lily doubt herself, doubt us, doubt the people who loved her most. It was like watching someone chip away at a foundation brick by brick, daring you to notice before the whole house collapsed. And I did notice. The only problem was, I didn't know how close to collapsing it already was. The breaking point, the moment everything I'd been sensing crystallized into undeniable truth, came on a night I'll never forget. It was late May, one of those sticky evenings when the air feels heavy and thunderstorms threaten on the horizon. David had been called out for an emergency repair at a factory, so Marissa was in charge. I offered to come by and help with Lily's bedtime routine, but Marissa brushed me off. "We're fine. Stop hovering." Still, something nagged at me. Around 9:30, I texted Lily, "Hey kiddo, did you check your sugar before bed?" The typing bubbles popped up, then vanished. A minute later, I got a reply. "Mom said I don't need to tonight. She said I'm annoying." My chest tightened. I immediately called. It rang 5 times before Lily answered in a whisper. "Danny, I don't feel good." Her voice was faint, slurred. "Sweetheart, what's wrong? Where's your mom?" She's outside, talking loud, with her friends." Through the phone, I could hear muffled laughter, music, the clinking of glasses. "Emily, listen to me. Check your sugar right now." A pause. The rustle of her digging through her backpack. Then her small, shaky voice. "It says 43. My stomach dropped. That was critically low. "Lily, you need sugar immediately. Do you have tabs? Juice?" Another pause. Then a choked whisper. "She locked the fridge." For a moment, I couldn't process it. "What?" "She said I sneak food. So she put a lock on it." "I can't." Her words dissolved into sobs. I was already sprinting for my car. "Hold on, Lily. Stay awake. I'm coming." The drive was a blur of red lights and screeching tires. My hands shook on the wheel, my mind racing. How long had she been low? How long had she been denied the one thing that could save her? When I burst into the house 15 minutes later, the scene froze me in place. Lily was curled on the couch, pale as paper, sweat soaking her hair. The glucometer lay on the floor beside her, its screen still glowing with that terrifying number. 43. And Marissa? She was on the back patio with 2 girlfriends, laughing over cocktails, a half-empty bottle of vodka gleaming on the table. "Are you out of your mind?" I roared, rushing past them. She blinked at me, annoyed, like I'd interrupted her manicure. "What the hell are you doing here?" I ignored her, grabbing the spare key David had once given me and yanking open the locked fridge. I shoved juice into Lily's trembling hands, coaxing her to drink, praying she'd stay conscious. Slowly, painfully, color crept back into her face. Her eyelids fluttered. She whispered, "Thanks, Danny," before collapsing against me. I held her close, shaking with fury and fear. Then I turned to Marissa, my voice low and shaking. "She could have died. Do you understand that? She could have died tonight because you locked her food away." Marissa scoffed, sipping her drink. "She sneaks snacks all the time. She has to learn discipline. You baby her too much." "Discipline?" My voice cracked with disbelief. "She's not sneaking snacks. She's fighting for her life." Her blood sugar was 43. She was minutes from a coma. For a flicker of a moment, I thought I saw doubt in her eyes. But it vanished just as quickly, replaced by a sneer. "You're so dramatic. No wonder she's such a weakling." That was it. That was the revelation I could never unsee, never unhear. This wasn't carelessness. This wasn't ignorance. This was cruelty. Cold, deliberate cruelty. Marissa didn't just fail to care for Lily, she resented her for needing care at all. And instead of stepping up, she punished her for it. I looked at her then and saw not a flawed parent, not a tired mother, but someone unfit to be near a child. Someone dangerous. That night, after Lily stabilized and fell into a shaky sleep, I stood in the doorway, watching her chest rise and fall. And I swore to myself, this ends now. Because I finally understood the truth. The day was coming when Marissa's negligence wouldn't just scare us, it would K*LL Lily. And I wasn't going to wait for that day. After that night, sleep became impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lily's pale face, her trembling hands, the mocking tilt of Marissa's glass as she dismissed her daughter's near death as drama. It wasn't just negligence anymore. It was willful endangerment. And I knew, if we didn't act fast, next time might be too late. The very next morning, I called David. He hadn't gotten home until dawn and sounded exhausted, but as soon as I told him what happened, his voice hardened with fear and fury. "She locked the fridge," he whispered, as though saying it out loud might make it more real. "Yes. And Lily's blood sugar was 43. If I hadn't come..." My throat closed around the words. Silence stretched on the line. Then he exhaled shakily. "We're done. I don't care what it takes. She's not doing this to our daughter again." For the first time in months, I heard the steel in his voice, the father who would tear down walls for Lily. But outrage wasn't enough. We needed evidence. So we planned. The next few weeks became a covert operation. I started documenting everything. Every missed log entry. Every forgotten insulin dose. Every complaint from the school nurse. I took photos of Lily's bruised fingers when she went days without testing, screenshot *TS of text messages where Marissa dismissed my concerns. David installed a nanny cam in the kitchen under the guise of home security. It captured hours of footage. Marissa scrolling on her phone while Lily begged for dinner, Marissa rolling her eyes when Lily asked for juice, Marissa snapping, "You don't need it, stop being dramatic," before storming out to smoke on the porch. The evidence piled up like kindling. But what gutted me most were the recordings of Lily herself. Quiet, desperate words, muttered when she thought no one was listening. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'll try not to need so much." Or worse, "Maybe if I wasn't sick, she'd love me more." Those words lit a fire in me. No child should ever have to apologize for existing. David and I took everything to a lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Jenna who specialized in custody cases. She didn't flinch as we laid out the horrors, though I saw her jaw tighten with every photo, every video, every trembling whisper. "This is more than enough," she said firmly, snapping her folder shut. "We're filing for emergency custody. And we're going to make sure a judge sees exactly what kind of environment your daughter is living in." For the first time, hope flickered in David's eyes. But Marissa wasn't stupid. She sensed the shift, the way David stopped deferring to her, the way I hovered closer to Lily, protective. She grew sharper, meaner. One evening, when I came by with takeout, she cornered me in the driveway. Her lipstick was smeared, her eyes glassy. "You think you're some kind of hero, don't you? Running around saving the poor little sick girl." I didn't rise to the bait. "This isn't about me. It's about Lily." She laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "You don't get it. She's not worth it. She's nothing but a burden." And if David wasn't such a coward, he'd admit it too. Something in me snapped. I stepped forward, my voice low and trembling with rage. "If you ever say that again, I swear I'll make sure you never see her another day in your life." For the first time, I saw fear flicker in her eyes. Just a flash, but it was there. She knew. The tide was turning. That night, David and I sat together at the kitchen table, evidence spread out before us, our lawyer's plan laid out in detail. It felt like preparing for battle. Because that's what it was. A battle for Lily's life. And this time, we weren't going to let Marissa win. The day of the custody hearing arrived like a storm front. Heavy gray clouds pressed against the courthouse windows, the kind of sky that makes everything feel heavier, more inevitable. David and I sat side by side at the long oak table, our lawyer Jenna in between us, shuffling papers with a calm precision that steadied my nerves. Across the aisle, Marissa swept in like she owned the place, heels clicking, hair lacquered into submission, lipstick too red for 9 a.m. She smirked when her eyes landed on us, like she already knew the outcome. But for the first time, I wasn't **mitigated. Not anymore. The judge entered, a stern woman with a reputation for being ruthless in child welfare cases. "Let's begin," she said, her voice echoing in the hushed chamber. Marissa's lawyer started with a polished speech about a mother's natural bond and how David, consumed by work, relied too much on his brother for support. They painted Marissa as overwhelmed but loving, a woman doing her best under difficult circumstances. I clenched my fists under the table, forcing myself to stay quiet. Then Jenna stood. She didn't waste time. Instead of a speech, she walked straight to the evidence binder and slid a photograph across the judge's bench. It was Lily, sitting pale and weak on the couch, her glucometer beside her, the screen showing 43. The judge's eyes narrowed. "Explain this." Marissa shifted in her chair, color draining from her face. "Oh, that was taken out of context. She's dramatic. Kids exaggerate." Jenna cut her off, her tone sharp. "Your Honor, this child was minutes from a diabetic coma. And this is only one incident." One by one, she laid it out. The videos from the nanny cam. The missed log entries. The school nurses' reports. The text messages where Marissa dismissed her daughter's symptoms. The air in the courtroom grew heavier with each piece of evidence. The smirk vanished from Marissa's face, replaced by a tight-lipped scowl. And then Jenna played the audio recording. I used to believe the worst thing you could call a parent was strict. But that belief shattered the night I watched a mother gamble with her own child's life, and lose. That was the day I realized some people don't just fail their kids, they destroy them. From the outside, you'd never guess there was anything wrong with the Wallace family. They lived in a tidy brick house at the end of a cul-de-sac in a Midwestern suburb where lawns were cut like carpets and neighbors exchanged pies at the holidays. Their photos, neatly arranged on the mantel, told a story of happy milestones, birthday parties with balloons, vacations at the lake, a smiling daughter with a gap-toothed grin. That daughter was Lily, and she was my little cousin. I'd grown up close to her dad, my Uncle David. He was the kind of man who coached soccer on the weekends, volunteered at church barbecues, and could fix just about anything with duct tape and patience. When he married Marissa, we all thought he'd lucked out. She was glamorous compared to him. Blonde hair always styled, nails done, a wardrobe that seemed too expensive for their budget. She wasn't exactly warm, but she knew how to turn on charm in public. And for a while, it looked like a normal family. When Lily was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at age 6, it rocked the family, but everyone rallied. David threw himself into learning the ins and outs of blood sugar monitoring, insulin injections, carb counting. He carried emergency glucose tabs in his pockets like other dads carried mints. He stayed up late watching her monitor, sometimes dozing in a chair beside her bed to make sure she didn't dip too low overnight. Marissa, though, she treated it like an inconvenience. She'll grow out of it, won't she? I remember her saying once, like diabetes was a phase, like braces or ear infections. When the doctor explained, gently but firmly, that no, this was lifelong, I saw the irritation flicker across her face. Not worry. Not sadness. Irritation, as if the disease was an insult directed at her. Still, in public, she played the part. She told friends at her yoga class how brave Lily was, how hard she worked as a mom. She posted photos of carefully plated, diabetic-friendly meals on Instagram, complete with hashtags like #supermom and #fighter. To anyone scrolling, she looked like the picture of devotion. But behind closed doors, things were different. When I visited, I noticed little things. Lily would ask, timidly, Mom, did you pack my insulin? And Marissa would roll her eyes. You're old enough to remember your own things. Lily was 7. 7. I'd watch her small hands fumble with the zipper of her pink backpack, searching for supplies she couldn't possibly manage alone. Or there was the time I found a half-empty bottle of insulin in the back of their fridge, way past its expiration date. When I mentioned it to Marissa, she waved me off. It's fine. They just put those dates on there to sell more. It wasn't fine. I knew it wasn't fine. But every time I tried to bring it up with David, he looked torn, caught between love for his daughter and the desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, his wife would rise to the occasion. He'd say things like, she's trying in her own way, or she just doesn't like needles. And I'd bite my tongue, because what do you say to a man clinging to the illusion of a stable family? Lily herself seemed to sense the imbalance. Around her dad, she was bright, bubbly, eager to show him the pictures she'd drawn or the books she was reading. Around her mom, she shrank. She ate slower. She spoke softer. She seemed to hold her breath, waiting for the inevitable sighs of annoyance, the sharp comments. And yet, if you looked at their social media, you'd think they were the American dream. Marissa loved posting photos of herself, helping Lily with homework, though half the time David had done all the work before she swooped in for a photo op. She shared videos of birthday cakes she baked from scratch, they were store-bought, I'd seen the receipts, with captions about how grateful she was for her beautiful family. That was the false stability, the glossy surface. To the world, Marissa was a devoted mom, Lily was thriving, and David was lucky. But beneath that surface, the cracks spread deeper every day. The first real clue came one afternoon when I dropped by unannounced. David was at work, and Marissa answered the door with a glass of wine in her hand. It was barely noon. Lily sat on the couch, pale and sluggish, staring at cartoons with glazed eyes. Is she okay? I asked immediately. Marissa shrugged. She's tired. Kids get tired. But I recognized the signs. Low blood sugar. I grabbed a juice box from the fridge, coaxed Lily to sip, and watched color return to her cheeks. Marissa didn't thank me. She didn't even look embarrassed. She just muttered, see? She's fine. That night, I lay awake replaying the scene. The juice box. The wine glass. The shrug. And for the first time, a thought I'd been pushing away forced itself into my mind. What if she's not just careless? What if she doesn't care at all? I wanted to be wrong. God, I wanted to be wrong. Because if I was right, it meant the perfect picture was nothing more than a mask. And it meant Lily's life was hanging in the balance. At the time, though, I convinced myself it was an isolated incident. One bad afternoon. A fluke. But deep down, I think I already knew. The stability was false. The family portrait was a lie. And the truth was waiting, ugly, undeniable, and closer than I realized. The first time I couldn't convince myself it was just a bad day came a few weeks later. It was early spring, the snow had melted into slush, and Lily had a birthday party to attend. She was excited all week. She kept talking about the magician who was going to perform, and how there would be a petting zoo with baby goats. For a kid who spent so much of her life counting carbs and enduring finger pricks, this was pure joy. David was working overtime that Saturday, so Marissa was in charge of dropping her off. When I swung by that afternoon to return a tool I'd borrowed from David, I found Lily on the couch, dressed in her party clothes, a sparkly purple dress and her hair in crooked pigtails she'd clearly done herself. Her cheeks were flushed, her eyes heavy-lidded. Hey, party girl, I said, crouching down. Aren't you supposed to be at Madison's? Her smile flickered. Mom said we're leaving soon. But soon never seemed to come. Marissa sat at the kitchen island, scrolling through her phone with a glass of something pale pink. She's fine, she said when I asked. The party goes all day. We'll get there. I glanced at the clock. It was already 3 p.m. The invitation had said 1 p.m. something wasn't right. When I looked closer at Lily, I noticed her hands were trembling. She rubbed her stomach and whispered, I feel dizzy. Alarm bells blared in my head. Did you check your blood sugar? I asked. She shook her head. Mom said I didn't need to today. I turned to Marissa, my voice sharper than I intended. She has to check every day. Multiple times. Marissa waved her hand like I was talking about flossing. She complains every time. It's exhausting. One day off won't K*LL her. One day off can K*LL her, I snapped. That was the first moment I saw it clearly, the gap between inconvenience and danger. For Marissa, every beep of the monitor, every insulin sh*T, every carb count wasn't about Lily's survival. It was about how much she was inconvenienced. I grabbed the glucose meter from Lily's backpack myself. Her blood sugar was dropping dangerously low. Panic tightened my throat. I rummaged for the emergency tabs and pushed them into her hand, urging her to chew. Slowly, painfully, her color returned. And all the while, Marissa just sat there, scrolling through her feed. When Lily stabilized, she leaned against me, small and exhausted. "Can we still go to the party?" she asked softly. I swallowed hard, because the truth was I wasn't sure she had the strength. But I looked at her hopeful eyes and nodded. "Yeah, kiddo. You're going to that party." I drove her myself. By the time we arrived, most of the kids were already tired, the magician had packed up, and the goats were back in their pen. But Lily still smiled as she ate a cupcake, carefully dosed with insulin this time, and hugged her friends. On the drive home, she said something that cracked my heart. "Thanks for bringing me, Danny. If you didn't, Mom probably would have forgotten." Forgotten. Like a birthday party was optional. Like her health was optional. That night, I replayed the scene over and over. Marissa dismissing the blood sugar check. Lily's trembling hands. The sheer indifference in her mother's eyes as her daughter's life hung in the balance. It wasn't just a fluke. It wasn't just a bad day. It was a warning bell. And it was ringing louder than I wanted to admit. Because if Marissa could ignore something so obvious, so critical, what else was she willing to ignore? The answer, I feared, was everything. After the birthday party incident, I couldn't shake the unease. That wasn't a one-off mistake. It was a pattern, and it was getting worse. I started checking in on Lily more often, dropping by after school, FaceTiming her at night, making excuses to pick her up for ice cream. And every time, I noticed new cracks in the facade. At first, they were subtle. A logbook missing entire days of blood sugar readings. A lunchbox that came home untouched except for a sticky juice box she clearly hadn't been allowed to drink. Complaints of dizziness written off by Marissa as a little bug. But then the patterns hardened into something darker. One evening, I came by with some groceries David had asked me to deliver. Marissa wasn't home yet, and Lily answered the door. Her face lit up when she saw me, until she noticed the grocery bag. "Can you hide that before Mom sees?" she whispered, tugging at my sleeve. "Why?" "Because she says if you keep bringing food, I'll think I'm special." "She says I'm not." The words hit like a fist. I crouched down, my heart pounding. "Lily, you are special. Don't you ever believe otherwise." She nodded, but the way her eyes darted toward the driveway told me fear had already sunk into her bones. When Marissa did arrive, her perfume hit the room before she did. She glanced at the groceries and scoffed. "Really, Daniel? You're undermining me. She'll grow up spoiled if you keep babying her." "Checking her sugar isn't spoiling her. It's keeping her alive." *T back. She narrowed her eyes. "You sound just like David. Always lecturing. Maybe if you both worried less, she'd toughen up." Toughen up. As if asthma, diabetes, or low blood sugar were character flaws instead of medical realities. But the cruelest cut wasn't even her words. It was the way she isolated Lily. Bit by bit, she chipped away at her confidence, framing her illness as an inconvenience. If Lily hesitated before pricking her finger, Marissa rolled her eyes. Drama queen. If she needed an insulin *T before dessert, Marissa sighed loud enough for everyone to hear. Ugh, always ruining the fun. At school, Lily's teachers noticed. Her grades slipped. She seemed withdrawn, distracted. She skipped recess because she was too tired. Lily's small, quivering voice filled the chamber. "Maybe if I wasn't sick, she'd love me more." The silence afterward was suffocating. Even the court stenographer paused, her eyes glistening. The judge turned to Marissa, her voice like ice. "Do you have any explanation for this?" For the first time, Marissa faltered. Her lawyer tried to object, but the judge silenced him with a glare. Marissa stammered. She's manipulating you. She's spoiled." Daniel fills her head with nonsense. I couldn't stay seated any longer. I stood, my voice trembling but loud. "She's a child. A sick child who needed her mother. And instead of love, you gave her cruelty. Instead of care, you gave her neglect. She almost died in my arms because of you." The judge banged her gavel. "Mr. Blake, sit down." But there was a softness in her eyes when she looked at me. She'd heard the truth, and she knew it. By the time Jenna finished her closing argument, the outcome was undeniable. The judge leaned forward, her voice cutting through the charged silence. "It is the ruling of this court that sole custody be granted to David Blake. Furthermore, due to overwhelming evidence of neglect and endangerment, visitation rights for Marissa Grant will be suspended pending further review." The gavel struck. Final. Absolute. Marissa erupted. She leapt to her feet, screaming, "This is a setup. You're stealing my daughter. You'll regret this." Security moved in, guiding her toward the door as her shrieks echoed off the marble walls. But all I could see was Lily, safe at last from the chaos, from the woman who should have been her protector but chose to be her tormentor instead. David collapsed into his chair, tears streaking down his face. He reached for my hand, gripping it so tightly it hurt. "We did it," he whispered, his voice raw. "She's safe now." For the first time in months, the crushing weight on my chest lifted. The storm had broken. But as I glanced toward the doors where Marissa had been dragged out, I knew it wasn't over. People like her didn't just disappear quietly. Still, we had won the battle that mattered most. Lily had a chance to live. And nothing, not Marissa's rage, not her lies, not her cruelty, could take that away anymore. The courthouse doors shut behind us with a metallic thud, sealing Marissa's screams inside. Outside, the gray sky had finally cracked, releasing a slow drizzle that streaked the stone steps. But for me, it felt like the first clean breath in months, like the world itself was washing away the poison that had nearly consumed Lily's life. David exhaled shakily, running both hands through his hair. He looked like a man reborn. Tired, yes, but lighter, freer. When he knelt to hug Lily, who had been waiting in a quiet room with a social worker, he clutched her as though she might vanish if he let go. "You're safe, sweetheart," he whispered into her hair. "I promise, you're safe now." And for the first time in a long while, Lily actually believed it. I could see it in her eyes, wide and wet, but finally free of that constant shadow of fear. The weeks that followed were a blur of adjustments. Lawyers and paperwork, therapists and medical check-ins. David moved into a smaller place closer to my apartment, so Lily could spend afternoons with me while he worked. She began seeing a counselor who specialized in children recovering from neglect. The changes were slow, but they were real. At first, Lily still flinched when the fridge door opened, as though expecting to be scolded. She'd whisper, "Am I allowed?" before reaching for a snack, even though David and I assured her 100 times she never had to ask for permission to eat. Bedtime was rocky too. She'd cry at night, worrying that her mom would show up and take her away. More than once, I found her curled up on the couch instead of her bed, because the living room lamp made her feel safer. But piece by piece, the fear loosened its grip. I'll never forget the first time she tested her sugar without being asked. She pricked her finger, logged the number, and looked up at me with a proud smile. "See? I can do it." I choked up right there, hugging her tight. It wasn't about the number, it was about her reclaiming control, her realizing that her illness wasn't a punishment or a flaw. It was just a part of her, and she was strong enough to manage it. David healed in his own way too. Guilt had been eating him alive for months. Guilt for trusting Marissa, for not seeing sooner, for almost losing his daughter. But slowly, he learned to forgive himself. Therapy helped. So did Lily's laughter, which began to return in bursts, filling the rooms with a sound we thought we might never hear again. As for Marissa, she faded from our lives, though not without resistance. There were angry voicemails, late-night texts filled with venom, even one drunken attempt to show up at David's new place before the police escorted her away. But the custody ruling held strong, and eventually, her attempts grew weaker, more sporadic, until she was little more than a bitter echo in the background. The scars, though, they linger. Even now, months later, there are reminders. Sometimes Lily wakes from nightmares, sobbing that she's too much or a burden. Sometimes she looks at me with wide, searching eyes and asks, "Are you sure you don't wish I was normal?" Every time I kneel down, look her dead in the eye, and say, "You are exactly who you're supposed to be. And I wouldn't trade you for the world." Because that's the truth. She isn't a burden, she's a fighter. A kid who faced cruelty and survived. The day I watched her mother fail her in the worst possible way, I thought I was witnessing the beginning of the end. But I was wrong. It wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something else. The beginning of Lily learning that she was worth fighting for. The beginning of David stepping fully into the role he was meant to play, not just as a provider, but as a protector. And for me, it was the beginning of understanding what family really means. It's not about blood or legal titles, or who shares your last name. It's about who shows up, who stays, who fights. Months later, on a sunny afternoon, I took Lily to the park. She ran ahead of me, her pigtails bouncing, her laughter cutting through the air. When she reached the swings, she turned back, waving furiously. "Push me, Danny," she shouted. I jogged over, grinning. As I pushed her higher and higher, her giggles echoing into the sky, I realized something. The day I saw a parent fail their kid in the worst way was also the day I learned what it meant to step in when someone else couldn't, or wouldn't. And maybe, just maybe, that's why Lily's still here today. Not because of luck, but because she finally had people who refused to fail her.